Suso, tira Alessio, Suso, tira, perché non tiriamo? Ma perché non tiriamo? Goal! Alessio Romagnoli, goal!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher, joined once again by even more bearded Anthony Tolgren.
Yeah, it seems every week it's getting longer, and yet it's never been as long as Madison's was like one random month when he decided to grow it out. But you can follow me on Twitter at Twitter45.
Yeah, you guys can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Madison_DT.
Yeah, Maddie, you're almost catching him up already, which is kind of scary to be honest. But, you know.
Your mustache is already thicker.
Yeah, I'm thinking about just keeping the mustache, but I want it to be able to like curl up before I shave everything. So
classic British gentleman.
Another
pipe,
month and a half. There you go.
Kind of do it. Not really. Nope. Just one, apparently.
One for the YouTube.
You could do a Salvador Dali mustache.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. You could do that. What about you, Ollie? Where's your mustache?
Decided to have a shave yesterday. So I'm back to looking, 12?
I'd give you 13
Hey,
and a
whatever
half.
works, man.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Yeah, I just can't do it. Like, it's patchy and horrible, and I'm just not blessed with the genetics. Who knows? Maybe it'll come. But for now, I guess I'll go back to being babyface. Yeah, how is everything? I'm being propped up by an industrial strength coffee today.
Yeah, man. I mean,
you've just woken up.
Yep. I just took a midday nap because why not? A little quick hour rest, and that's it. Yeah, I played hooky yesterday. Worked for about 2 hours, and then just decided to log out for the rest of the day and start my weekend. So here I am. Yeah.
What is hooky?
I don't know what the exact definition is, but it's just like when you would skip school as a kid.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. It's like bunking off.
What?
Sure.
That's not a term we use.
18 plus. Yeah. Or skiving. We call it skiving. But yeah.
Bunking off, huh? Is that what you
Don't
said?
say
I
that.
think that's American.
No.
That's an American phrase.
Nah. That to me
Sounds like
suggests
something Isaac
something
does
you're
on his Friday
Like
night.
skipping,
Yeah.
it's like skipping class or whatever.
Yeah.
That to me sounds like something you're doing in your alone time.
I don't know, man. This is already going down a dark hole. I don't really want to. I think we should get into football or whatever there is left of football. Speaking of dark holes, right, what should we start with? There's been a fair bit of stuff that's been knocking about. I suppose what we will start with is the most interesting bit of news is that Rangnick actually came out and said something about being linked to Milan, and it was probably the furthest that he's gone so far in terms of acknowledging that there is actually a link, whereas he did an interview like early in March and he did one early in April, and both times he denied that he'd signed anything in December, which was pretty specific in my opinion. And then bang on a month apart, those two, then a month later, here comes this one. He says, there has been an interest from Milan, but with coronavirus, there have been other things to consider besides thinking if Ralf Rangnick was the right man for them or vice versa. Interesting that he refers to himself in the third person. I don't tend to like people who do that, but moving on. Then he got asked what he expects from his future work experience. It says it always depends on the club, but I'm not interested in the financial aspect. For me, it's about having a certain influence, which has nothing to do with power, even if in certain situations you need it to carry out certain things. Then goes on to talk about how he hired like his entire coaching staff at Leipzig in one afternoon, and he says that he would like to have that amount of power the next place that he goes. So finally acknowledges that Milan are interested in him, and then uses, in my opinion, he uses the coronavirus to kind of deflect from the issue, and then goes on to talk about the role that, by the sounds of it, we're going to give it. So is that it?
I mean, I've thought so for a while. I mean, that's kind of been the murmurs that we've heard for a bit now. And to me, like you said, he used the coronavirus as a way to kind of cover up any contact. But before, it was like he still had the season to focus on. Now he doesn't. Well, I guess the Bundesliga is coming back now, right? Didn't they announce that? Or something?
I think either this next weekend or the weekend after. It's like the 15th to the 23rd or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So never mind. My next point no longer is valid. I was going to say now that season's gone, he could kind of open up to it, but it's back. So who knows? But regardless, he's being more candid about it, even though it's still a little sly. And I think it's if not a done deal, it will be. But it's definitely a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Maddie, do you think he's reading between the lines there of what he said? It is the first time that he said, "Oh yeah, Milan are interested in me," and then it's like there's other things to consider now. That to me is
I don't know. I think it's kind of weird that he was so adamant that nothing was happening, and then now all of a sudden, that we've had contact. I think like 4 months ago, we felt like it was like 90% done. But I feel like even with him coming out and saying it, I still think like it's 50-50 to me. I don't know. Like the problem is, I feel like with Serie A, we know a lot about the coaches in Serie A, so you can kind of like tell when they're bullshitting or like beating around the point. But with him, I don't care how much research you do, none of us really know when he's bullshitting or
if you can't read what he's saying.
Yeah,
it's difficult as well because he did the interview in German, and then it was translated to Italian, and then I've translated it to English, and it makes you wonder if there were certain bits of phrasing or like one word that means something in German that then means something else in Italian and means something different. It was hard. I would like to get a native German speaker to say exactly what he said, and then maybe you can read more from it. But I found it interesting that he finally admitted, before whenever he's been asked about it, he said, no, I haven't signed anything. It's false statements. I think the most accurate version of events is the one that suggests that there were talks held around about December, and that got very close to an agreement, and that everything got slowed down by coronavirus. Nothing was signed, and perhaps they had a framework in place that he'd be allowed to work with. So let's say they promised him 100 million euros for the transfer window. And then obviously the economic impact that coronavirus will have on football caused Gazidis to sort of maybe revise the offer and say, okay, we can't actually give you that money anymore. And maybe things went cold for a little bit. But now, with things in Germany returning to relative normality, obviously they're going to be playing behind closed doors, etc. But the league is getting back underway on May the 15th. Touch wood, because I actually want to watch some football other than Belarusian.
It's going to be nice.
Yeah. Have you got a Bundesliga team, by the way, either of you?
Not really.
I actually like both Dortmund and Bayern Munich, but you can't like both of them.
No,
shouldn't like either.
So, well, I like Dortmund because of Mkhitaryan and Pulisic, but something about Bayern Munich I've always liked. So I don't really have I just like to watch the both of them.
When they were the Champions League final, I rooted for Bayern, but I've never been fond of either team. Specifically, my disdain for Dortmund came from playing FIFA career mode. For whatever reason, every time I'd play against them and simulate, I would lose. So I just strongly don't like that club.
That is the kind of thing that can really shape your opinion of a football team.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it is.
Yeah, I
FIFA.
I feel like I liked Dortmund before they were the hipster team to go to. Like when they were rubbish in 2010, before they had the Klopp impact, and they had stars like Royce.
But speaking of Klopp, did you see that he supposedly was offered the Mexico job, like right before going to Liverpool?
I saw that.
That's so funny. Yeah, obviously he turned it down.
He got offered another couple of club jobs around then that I thought were interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was offered one in Italy, but I can't remember who with.
I think the German influence on Italian football is going to be very interesting to see. I mean, everyone knows how Ralf Rangnick is important to German football right now, and to see that come over to Milan, I don't know. I'm excited whether it works out or not. I think it's going to be a nice change of pace. We're just so used to going for these kind of like mid to bottom tier not tier, but table managers that are already established in the league, or former players that know the league, just anything that's stuck in Italy. And it's nice that we're branching out finally.
I think there's two ways to look at it. The one way that you can look at it is that, first of all, it's perhaps a bit harsh on Pioli, and it represents another roll of the dice. Fred did a good feature on our website.
People didn't like it, though.
Yeah, people kicked off. I thought it was very interesting, and I was really eager to post it to see what people thought of it. Basically saying why we should keep Pioli, and perhaps if Rangnick if Rangnick was coming in, keep him as like a director or something like that. I understand both sides of it, because on the one side, it's rolling the dice, giving Rangnick complete power in a new league after, on the back of what is a really uncertain time for world football. And perhaps he won't have the tools that he needs to properly do what he wants to do. So it's a risk in that sense. And also purely, we have seen the positive aspects of what he's done since he came in last October. But then the flip side of it is that we have done the same thing over and over again in appointing our third choice head coach, it not working out. And this represents perhaps a different gamble, a positive gamble, because if we'd have hung around not being able to lure a top coach like Allegri or something, and would have ended up with, let's say, De Zerbi from Sassuolo, who we've been linked with, or another candidate that was down the list, I think it's better to go with somebody who can transform the culture of the club on and off the field to implement his way. You know, it's not just Leipzig that he's done this at. He did it at Schalke more than 10 years ago. He did it at Hoffenheim 10 years ago. And he's done it at all the Red Bull clubs, and he's now overseeing all of them. So I think he might fancy.
And Schalke was good for a while too when he was there.
Big club. Yeah, big club. Still, I obviously managed by the best head coach in the world at the moment in David Wagner.
He's American.
He is. So yeah, I see both sides to it. I think it's happening. I think whatever's happened to slow down talks, etc., has been ironed out now. Whether it was about budget, the only question for me now is how long this goes on, and whether there is an overlap between the sort of contract thing, because I know he's got a contract with Red Bull apparently until 2021. So if he then enters the final year of that contract, would it be wiser for us to wait and just get him, or would he rescind his own contract? I don't know how it would work.
I guess it depends on how much money we'd have to pay Red Bull.
If we would at all, whether he's... I read something that suggested that the two parties would come to an agreement on a mutual termination, Red Bull and Rangnick, as sort of a thank you for your services. We're not going to...
That would be the kind thing to do. I mean, it's not like he didn't just build their entire empire for them from the ground up. So, like, he's an important figurehead in their history. If they were to do that, I wouldn't be surprised. But at the same time,
they're under no obligation.
They don't have to at all. And they are still competitive teams trying to grow further. So why not take the money and run if they can get it?
Yeah, I agree. From Rangnick's point of view, I think it's interesting, this idea that he might want to test his methods abroad and see if he can do it in another country and do it at a team that he grew up watching and idolising with those Sachi sides. I think that's actually going to be a big draw for him. So we'll wait and see. But in the meantime, papers are saying all kinds of stuff about the players that he will target if he does join. And I find these interesting, these like theoretical lists of players that we would go after, and players that he's already looking at that are within our budget and stuff like that. So there were 6 that came out earlier today, Sport Media Set, who I get the feeling they used to be semi-reliable and are now just sort of turning more towards they were just churning stuff out for the sake of it. But
I think they were reliable when they had that direct relation to Milan. And then after that, it's kind of been whatever.
Yeah, they're just like, they used to be, I wanted to say they were direct sponsors, but now I think they're just affiliates or something. I remember
didn't Berlusconi own them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were like, they had a huge ownership stake.
I'm not,
I can't remember exactly what it was.
I'm not familiar with how that one. I'm not sure actually, but I think Berlusconi might have sold Sport Media Set at some point while he owned us, but they stayed as like a partner of the club for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But you used to see their stuff everywhere. I've got a picture in front of the interview zone at the club, and it's Sport Media Set stuff everywhere. Whereas now I think it's DAZN or DAZN.
Yeah, DAZN.
Who are the guys who like sponsor San Siro and everything. So anyway, 6-player list. We'll go through them quickly. Some of these players you might have heard of. Some of them we may have talked about before even. Right, so we need a centre-back. Apparently, Deo Upamecano was on there from Leipzig. Coincides with a report that came out from Germany, from Bild, so I would say quite reliable, saying that they only want 40 million for him. So he's 21 years old. He's a out-and-out starter now for Leipzig. He's played 29 times this season. we need a partner for Romagnoli. This guy's right-footed. I think 40 million for a guy that's going to solve our problems for potentially 5 years more into the future. I say get this done.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a potential record signing for us, which is a bit scary because he's more unknown than other players you would buy for that price. But I mean, all the signs point to it being a good move. And again, if we have Rangnick on the cards with us, it makes sense. That's one of his guys.
Is he the one who had like 100 million buyout?
Yeah, he had a huge, I think it was 100 million euro, release clause, and then it's gone down 20 million every summer of his contract.
Okay.
So it's 8 year, and then this summer I believe it's set to be 60, but they're saying that because of the finances, etc., Leipzig would take 40.
Mm-hmm.
I think 40 is fine, and then also there's the whole thing of, you know, Leipzig have been interested for 2 windows in a row now in Çalhanoğlu. Now, you might say that's because Rangnick likes him, so he's probably going to keep him around at Milan. But if we're going to enter into that NBA trade style market because no teams have actual cash, all they can do is swap players, then I wouldn't mind seeing like Çalhanoğlu plus 20 mil go for Upamecano, because that fills a need, and then we can sign another playmaker based on some of the other names on this list. But yeah, I like Upamecano. I've done a lot of watching on him because I tried to include some mini scout reports in this piece. It's under the features section. If you haven't read it, go give it a read. And he seems kind of similar to Romagnoli in certain ways. Like he's good with intervention. I think he uses his brain to defend a lot rather than perhaps his brute strength and height and all that kind of stuff. He's not particularly massive in terms of height for the centre back, but he's very aggressive, good at snuffing out danger, and quick, very quick. And it always helps to have a quick centre back. And also Rangnick, it's worth pointing out, likes 2 players who can play out from the back, and he's good at that. So I think it gets a tick from me. I know there are other centre back targets that we're apparently on about. Todibo's come back into fashion. Who was the other one? Simakan from France, who for 25 mil, like I've genuinely never heard of the guy, so I'm a bit wary about the idea of doing that. And then there's it's an interesting one, but he's the one who's been linked for months now, so I think that there's something in it. Second on the list was an interesting one, another Leipzig player, Dani Olmo, who we were linked with throughout January. It seemed as though we got something tied up, and then he ended up choosing Leipzig for 20 mil plus a load of bonuses. Mm-hmm. And since going there, he's kind of struggled for playing time. And there's rumours that with Euro 2021 next year, he wants to be in the Spain squad. So he might look to move on. We do need quality and depth out wide, in my opinion. And almost clearly a player that the management liked and we're happy to greenlight a move for. Or what is it? Do you think it'd be like sloppy seconds? What do you think?
Yes and no. I mean, so the way I'm looking at this upcoming window is it's kind of like just this great reset that the whole sports world is having. All the players are going to be at drastically different levels of fitness and readiness compared to where they would be at this point in the season. So you could find players that aren't as desirable that might perform better than some of the bigger name players just because of that fitness. You know, they might realize that this is their opportunity to grow and develop, and they've been training this whole quarantine, whereas some of the big stars might just be vacationing or doing TikToks, like some of them, you know?
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah. So I could see kind of a drastic change in like the quality of players that are going to perform next season. And I think this is a good opportunity to take risks because of that. So his bad performance, this little bit that he's had at, is it Salzburg that he's at? Leipzig, sorry. I always mix them up. I don't think it's as big of an issue as others might think. I mean, he was fantastic before, and I think when you have a dip like this, you take your opportunities to grow when you have them, and that's what I'd imagine he would do. So I'm for it.
Yeah, Manny?
Absolutely for it.
Yeah, I'd be for it if it was the right price. You know, I wouldn't like the idea that he was bought 6 months ago for 20 mil, and then Leipzig said it's going to be 30, 35 mil or something like that. I wouldn't do it out of principle. I think this is one of those where I don't know. It feels like something that would only ever happen in FIFA or something, like a team that was in for him. He ended up choosing the other team that was in the running, and then 6 months later he finally ends up with us at San Siro. I would like to see it. I'm all for signing players that have got a point to prove ahead of Euro 2021. Like, I think that is going to be a big thing. It's going to be a big deal for those players that perhaps might not have fit directly into our project immediately before, but now, because the Euros have been pushed back a year, they're a year older, and they're genuinely competing for spots at these big. I mean, you look at like Teo Hernandez, for example, who's absolutely on fire and now must be a shoo-in to start at left back for France in the next Euros. And you've got to hope that that could happen with the likes of Olmo. I don't know. I'd do it for the right price, I think, because also I've had this bit of a crisis regarding how I think about Castillejo. Like, I was well on the hype train, and then with the lockdown going on, I'm starting to forget about all the things that made me like him. And now I'm like, actually, he never scores, he never assists, he just works hard. And then we got linked with Florian Thauvin from Marseille, and in the last 3 full seasons, he scored 59 goals in 120 something games. Like, it's a really good goals per game ratio. And I've seen some people saying, "No, we don't need him. Castillejo's better." And I'm like, I don't know. I think Castillejo scored 7 goals in the same period of time or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, no one was too keen on Castillejo when we got him. No one was keen on him when we started using him. It wasn't until November time, maybe even a little before that, October, November, when he started to kick up, and people were big on him then. And, you know, I was for it too because he was performing, but he's one of those players that I could see not utilizing his time wisely here. I could see him coming back and needed a lot more fitness training to get back to that level than anyone else. So I have no problem getting rid of him. Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
I appreciate his work, and I think for the most part, it would be fair to say that he seized his opportunity since Suso left. It's just one of those where we need production from the wings. We can't be relying on a centre forward to score all of our goals. And thankfully, Rebic has stepped up playing from the left or playing up front alongside Zlatan, and that's all well and good. But at the moment, a left back is our second top scorer. I just think you look to those areas, like, we're getting no goals from attacking midfield. We're getting no goals from our right side. What do you want Benacer to start scoring the goals? So that's when I start thinking someone like Olmo, who scores plenty, or another wing target could be, like Thauvin, could be ideal just to up our goal threat a little bit. I mean, it's our worst attack in 33 years at this point.
How much do we buy him for?
Who? Castillejo.
Castillejo, yeah.
He went in the Barca swap deal. Can't remember how.
I mean,
much.
I would keep him and just like put him back on the bench then.
He's a good squad player for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because you saw it when he started to get more consistent games. Like, he helps create chances. He's not necessarily going to score chances, but you know, he's definitely worth keeping around just because of that.
Yeah, that's fair. I understand that not everything is to do with stats, and contribution is measured in a number of different ways. And there are stats that suggest that he is contributing goals. It's just a difficult one. You know, we need goals from everywhere on the pitch.
Right now, we have too many players who are contributing behind the scenes and not players who are contributing on the scenes. You know,
whenever you say behind the scenes, I keep thinking like they're helping in soup kitchens and stuff like that. I know what you mean, though. Like, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think Castillejo would be great to have as a rotation option, because we're going to get injuries, we're going to get suspensions, we're going to have players that need rest. So if we could get our starting left and right midfield, or left and right wing spots sorted, then Samu can compete for a place, and also Olmo can play behind the striker. So that might be worth considering. He can also play in the midfield too. So like, if there's a game at home against a team that we know is going to come and try and shit out a draw, if we play Olmo in the midfield too alongside Benacer, then we've just got that extra creativity straight away. So yeah, there's plenty of options. I quite like him as a versatile player, but again, it depends on price for me. Next one on the list, this guy's from Red Bull Salzburg, Dominik Szoboszlai. Probably.
No matter how many times you mention this guy, I still don't know anything about him.
I don't know.
I'm not going to learn his name. I prefer we not get him just solely out of laziness on my part. I don't want to learn to pronounce that. But if we get him, then I'll look into it. I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah, he's only 19.
I'm sure
but
he's fine.
sure he's fine. Yeah, he's only 19 years old, admittedly. But the thing is, with all these, like, if you look at the model that Rangnick's built at Red Bull Leipzig and then across the other clubs, the one consistent theme seems to be that these players get signed when they're like 17 for a really cheap fee to Salzburg. They develop for 2 years. They go to Red Bull Leipzig or somewhere else and explode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Erling Haaland's done it, but before that, you're looking at like Naby Keita, Dayot Upamecano's one of them. There's Haidara. There's so many of these players that have gone Salzburg to Leipzig and exploded, or Salzburg somewhere. And it's like, why not? Why should we not get involved? And there's a reason that Liverpool and Arsenal, Juve, Lazio are all being linked with this Szoboszlai, and it's because he's a damn good young player. And 20 million, unfortunately, is the going rate now for a talented sort of teenage midfielder, I guess. And you can play left midfield or central midfield, which I quite like. That's our Bonaventura replacement sorted, I guess. And yeah, I just think with him on the left, because he's a left midfielder and not an out-and-out winger, him and Teo could form a really good overlap partnership on that left side. So I'm all for this. Like, he fits our project perfectly. Rangnick knows him. He wants to join. I mean, he did an interview saying that if he was to join us, then it would be destiny, which implies that he's always thought of himself playing for us. So I see this one getting done. I actually see this one as a concrete option for us. So yeah, get that on the back of your shirt. See if you can pronounce it then.
Nope.
Yeah. All right, number 4 on the list then. Now this one got a lot of hate. I gave each transfer a rating, and I gave this one a 5 because I really didn't know what to think either way. Rolando Mandragora. Now AJ's shaking his head for those who can't see. He currently plays at Udinese, but he played before. He was Juve owned basically, and then they sold him for 20 mil, and they got a buyback option on it for 26 mil. And the rumor is that, Udinese's president has actually confirmed that Juve are going to buy him back this summer and then sell him on, hopefully, to make their money back, which is just a classic Juve thing. They've done it with so many different players. It's ridiculous. I don't know what to say, really, apart from, like, we could maybe do worse than him if we're looking at depth in holding midfield, because he is an out-and-out holding midfielder. And, like, with Belia going, if we could get this guy for a good price and on a low salary, then, you know, like I say, I think there's worse options, but I think he'd want a starting role because he has played for Italy. Like, he is recognised internationally, and he probably has his eyes on the next Euros, but technically a very limited player. Seems to just thrive on desperate challenges and stuff that sometimes pay off and sometimes don't. Kind of similar to Benacer in that regard. You know, he flies about and gets himself stuck in, and we don't need 2 midfielders with disciplinary problems. But not a bad deep line playmaker. I guess he's like a much rougher cut version of Tonali, albeit they're both pretty unpolished at the moment. I just think Tonali is the answer in that particular position, and we need to get that done if we can.
Definitely. I mean, if we're going to go for a player in that role, it's Tonali. But specifically about this deal, to me, the issue isn't even the player, who is not great. It's the morality of participating in Juventus's financial doping that they consistently get away with. That's all this would be.
In your opinion, just to avoid libel?
Fuck them. They're criminals. No, but it's ridiculous. We see this all the time. They sell these bang average young players for these exorbitant fees, these club records to all these lower clubs. They set up buyback just slightly higher. They buy the player back, and then they magically sell them the same summer for a double to another club that's not too hot. So, you know,
who did they do it to with Genoa? They did it. They sold someone really, really average to Genoa. It was like Pereira, Osteraro or something like that, and they sold him for an exorbitant fee, and everyone was like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah. I don't know, but I'm not a fan of that crap at all.
Yeah. No, I'd rather not participate in it. I agree with you on that. I just think there's better options. But again, it's one of them I put at the end of that that particular section. If Rangnick wants him, if this is Rangnick saying, no, he's exactly what I want for the pressing style, I don't mind that he gets stuck in and stuff, then I'd just say, all right, well, you want him, we've got to trust you on this one. And Udinese apparently want Rade Krunic, so like it could be one of those where if we haven't got a use for Krunic, then we send him. I don't mind because we're buying them for Juve. Shit.
And that's
Never
the
mind.
problem. If it was just Udinese that we're involved with, then yeah, a Krunic Mandragora swap or whatever is not terrible of a deal because I would value him higher than I would value Krunic, to be honest. But the fact that it's no matter what we offer Udinese, Juventus could just come say, no, we're going to buy him for this amount. And if you want him, 40 million, like they were going to do with Demiral. I mean, what did they buy back Demiral for? It was like 18 or something, right? Like,
Yeah,
I
it was.
thought it was 20 because I thought that they were going to double their money.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to sell him to us for double without him making a single appearance.
But then it's
just
like-
asinine.
And then it's like they just decided, no, actually, we're going to keep him.
Yeah.
Stuff you all, we're going to keep him. And then he was playing mint up until his injury. It's like they get so lucky. And in the report, the first report that came out, it said it perfectly. It was like, Juve are only going to exercise their buyback option on Mandragora if they've got a team lined up that's willing to pay them 2 million more than what they're buying him back for. It's like there's a reason, it is to do with capital gains. It's how they stay afloat. It's how they avoid FFP breaches. And sometimes I think we need to be a bit smart about stuff like that. I mean, people took the piss out of our feeder club relationship with Genoa, but they took some shit off us. Like, and it was a beneficial relationship in that sense. So the fifth one on the list, a guy that we all know, Mario Götze, Borussia Dortmund, obviously, has been at Bayern Munich before. This seems to be a thing. Like, there's Bild who was saying it, Mediaset have said it, and then there's been a few other places in Italy who've reported it. He's out of contract, so it's going to be a free transfer. I don't know how I feel about this. I do know how I feel about it. I think his salary is going to be out of our reach, and also it would be a big risk in salary terms for a player who hasn't had the easiest of last 2 years. I mean, there's no doubt in his stats. Hang on, let me read off his stats. So for 217 appearances for Dortmund, he's got 45 goals and 61 assists.
How many of those were in his first spell? Do you know?
That's a great question, actually.
Because he was way more, way better in his first spell there than he was in his second. Well, he is now.
He was, and then obviously he controversially moved to Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
60 combined goals and assists in 114 games for them. There's no denying that as an attacking midfielder, his production is right up there, or certainly it has been up until perhaps 18 months ago. This one seems to be interestingly personal driven because his partner, let's say, is a model and works in Italy a lot apparently, in Rome and Milan in particular. So he wants to go to Italy for that reason, and he's changed agent in order to get himself a move. I don't know. This one just doesn't sit right with me. Like I've always liked Mario Götze as a player, but I just feel like he's one of them who has sort of run his course now. He's 27, so like, he's never had loads of pace, so you could say he's probably got another 5 years in him at a decent level. But
his physical fitness levels have visibly declined. I mean, just looking at him, you could see his body has gotten a little bit out of shape. He's getting chunky, plain and simple. And that's obviously a terrible trait to have in a soccer player. Like,
yeah, no, I wouldn't mind as well if Rangnick said, trust me on this one, guys. I've always wanted him. We've got a chance to bring him here. I'll turn him into a very good player. But part of me thinks he's never played in a style that Rangnick would like anyway. He likes as I've done with the breakdown of like squad ages and stuff, he likes the youth of his squad to be up the front end of the pitch because he wants them pressing into every single corner,
right.
Pressuring the centre-backs at every opportunity, breaking up passes out from the back, etc. Götze has never really been that player, I could understand it if it was some of Dortmund's other midfielders, attacking midfielders, whatever, but he's just not really one for doing that. I'd say he's more of a luxury playmaker, like slightly harder working Mesut Ozil, but I don't know. If he really wants him, which I don't think he does, Rangnick, then I would say I'd give it a blessing because it's a free transfer, therefore it is slightly low risk to begin with, but I think he'd probably demand a decent salary, like 5-6 million euros a year net. So it's a risk, you know.
I wouldn't want him personally.
No.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I like him. I still have good memories of like when he won the World Cup. Obviously, that final wasn't a very good game, but he scored that goal as a sub, and I thought that was fantastic, and I was really hyped on him. But like Madison said, he didn't do well after moving to Bayern and then back to Dortmund, and he's on the upper end of the scale, even though he's a year older than me, so we're getting old. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's necessary. I think it's a vanity signing based off name alone. And if we did it, it would be more of a favor to the player than to the club. And we're just not in a position to grant those right now. Yeah,
that's a very good way of putting it. And also, it's weird to think that Götze is probably most famous for scoring that World Cup final winning goal. A, that was when he was at his absolute peak as a player. And
it was also 6 years ago.
Yeah, he wasn't starting for Germany. And B, that was 6 years ago when he was 21. He's now 27, and it doesn't seem like he's ever hit that peak that he was going to. So I'd potentially stay away. But it just depends. It depends on what Rangnick wants. If he thinks he can get a player out of him, then maybe if he drops him deeper and plays him as a central midfielder.
Signing him will be the most Milan signing that we could ever make.
Yeah. I get it, though, because people then turn around and complain and say, we never go for any proven quality. And
in my opinion, I don't know if he's proven quality.
Yeah.
Look at his production, though. His
I just feel like he's always
ridiculous.
Maybe not wild card wouldn't be the right word for it, but he's always kind of just been a what if player. Like he's one that you always expect to have been able to do more, but never quite got to that level for some odd reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he never really reached his ceiling. But what I will say is I'll give him credit. His stats, and I always bang on about stats. His stats as an attacking midfielder are pretty outstanding. Like, it's just on the 18 months that he's become a risk. 18 months ago, he was being linked with joining Klopp at Liverpool, and now it's like who's buying him, Roma, Milan, or some Spanish club? I don't know. It's a bit of a strange one. I think there's a reason that other clubs aren't after him. But we'll see on that one. Finally, and this ties in with the question that we got. And I've gone off it now, so I can't read. There we go. This one comes from Nadia Ahmed 123. Thoughts on the links with Luka Jovic? Luka Jovic is number 6 on the link. AJ, you go first. What do you think? Is this a good idea?
Yeah, that's the move to make. If we get one player off that, I know we already have a shit ton of strikers right now, but to match him back up with Rebic and Ralf, that's how he got that move to Real Madrid. Why would we not go for that? I mean, he's a stud. That's the type of signing we want to make. That's a statement signing and a smart signing at the same time. He's got the name value. He's got the X factor and playing ability. He's got age on his side. We'd have the new coach. Plus, he'd still have Zlatan there as a mentor if things fall behind. Plus, we still have Leao if things go rough. So I think that's honestly the lowest risk move we can make with the highest reward. So that's the one to make for sure.
Yeah, Maddie?
I have nothing more to add. That was perfect.
I think it was a very well constructed argument. If you were Luka Jovic's agent, so I think you should apply for that role. So there needs
probably
to
be
paid
more.
a loan with option to buy, to see to see if him and Rebic can create that same chemistry that they had before at Frankfurt.
That's all it would ever be. Real Madrid would. There has been suggestions otherwise, but there's no way that Real Madrid sell to us outright this summer, because it would mean that we have to pay 50 million plus, which we're just not going to do, or they'd take a massive loss, which they're not going to do. And also, what happens if they were to let go of their control of the player and he was to turn into an absolute machine again and start banging him in for us, scores 25, 30 goals in Serie A next season, and Real Madrid, like they do with Theo Hernandez already, look like the mugs out of it.
Would have to buy a clause where we can get him if we want him for X amount, not negotiate after,
A loan with option to buy makes sense, not like the Rebic thing where it looks like we're going to have to pay over the odds for him now because he's kind of exploded in recent months. it does make sense. We need to pre-agree an option to buy that maybe was an obligation based on if we got Champions League or something like that. I think that would be a fair way to do it. My worry is that Real Madrid are going to absolutely... Everyone's like, oh, we've got good relations with Real Madrid after the Teo Hernandez thing. I don't see how that would work. I think, if anything, it would prompt Real Madrid to say, we made a mistake, we're putting a buyback in this time. And they'd say, sorry, the only way we're negotiating is if we get a buyback. And then it's like, nah, I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't be against that, to be honest. I mean, if the buyback's high enough...
And if he plays well, we get punished. So I just really don't like that idea, unless
Yeah,
that
but then he's
buyback
going to
was
go back
set
to
in there.
Madrid and flop again.
Let's say the buyback was set in there at like 80 mil or something like that. Then don't get me wrong, that's the kind of money where we say, okay, thanks, but we can get a replacement with that money.
Exactly.
But, I don't know. Dangerous.
That would also be, I think, our biggest transfer both in and out if it was something like 80 mil on a buyback. Because we, like you said, we'd have to pay 50. That would break our record for incoming player. And if we could sell him for 80, that's more than what we sold Kaká for, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a win-win all around.
That was just a figure that I plucked out of my head because it'd be something that protected us.
But it's the only thing that would make
situation.
sense, you know? Just looking at the amortization of it, we would have to buy him for around 50, 55 or so. And then the only way that either club could justify a buyback is if it was something that we would profit off of, you know? So that's just the only way.
It could be like a loan with option to buy that's set at 40 million or something like that. And then Real Madrid have a buyback option in that at 50 million, which means if he performs well enough, then we take him on permanently. And if they want him back immediately, then we get a nice profit from it instantly. That would be the only way. It's like what Thingy did, isn't it? Initially, he was on loan at Frankfurt from Benfica.
Yeah.
And then last summer, Eintracht bought him permanently from Benfica. So Benfica got a nice profit. And then they sold him on to Real Madrid. So Eintracht got a nice profit. I think that would be the only way to make something work. It's just going to be a really difficult formula. I think it's going to be tougher than people think. I won't be surprised if some rumours get thrown in there about a Donnarumma swap deal.
Or what if, and this will never happen, a Zlatan swap deal?
See that?
Then
that was an actual thing.
Was it really?
Was it really?
Said that,
well, then don't listen to me.
Yeah,
if I'm throwing out Don Ballon quality ideas, fuck.
Yeah.
Wrap up the show now. Jeez.
Yeah, thank you for listening. No, Don Malone said that Raiola was going to take Zlatan to Real Madrid, and Zlatan's always wanted to play for Real Madrid, so he'd extend his contract at Milan for 2 years, and they'd exchange loans. So we'd loan Zlatan to Real Madrid for 2 years, and then he'd retire, and we'd get Luka Jovic for 2 years. I thought that was hilarious. It's so far-fetched, but at the same time, I was like,
I could see Zlatan actually saying yes to that for the sole reason that he might win a Champions League there doing that.
And also he gets his curtain call at the Bernabeu and pisses off Barca, who I think he now inherently dislikes. So
yeah,
that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, for the right terms, I'm all for it. I think it's a player that Rangnick obviously will know well because he played in the Bundesliga and he tore it up there. Player that Rebic knows well, and we're on good terms with his agent. So we've got 3 things working in our factor there. He's only 22. He's got plenty to prove. He's actually kind of got a battle for the starting spot for the Serbian national team as well ahead of the Euros, because Mitrovic does quite well for them. So it's not guaranteed that he starts for Serbia at Euro 2021. So I think the right boxes are ticked on every aspect, but we'll see, because I think it'll be quite a complicated one. Anyway, questions. So this actually kind of ties in with the Jovic thing, and we might have discussed it before. Neraziz Octavian asks, to what extent do you believe in the jersey number curse? The number 9 curse. Imagine Jovic 9.
I believe in it, 100%.
I don't believe in it.
I think it speaks for itself. We've seen how many players have taken it, how many players have been shitty, because it's not just incoming players that take the 9.
was shitty when he came here.
Inaccurate completely. You're wrong. You're off your rocker, old man.
I agree with that. He wasn't shit. He actually started like a house on fire, and then everything came out about him moving to Chelsea, and that's when.
So my big indicator on it is all the players that came in with the 9 obviously did bad, but we had good players decide to switch to the 9 and then become bad. Pato switched to 9, stayed for 6 months. Piontek got the 9, stayed for 6 months. I can't even talk. There's more in there too.
Arguably, Pato or Piontek could have been a one-season wonder regardless of if he switched to the number 9.
Yeah, but we'll never know.
Yeah, but now he's at Hoffenheim or wherever he's at. Hertha, and he's still not doing anything.
No, you're right.
It's because he still took the 9. I don't know.
Did he?
He's not. He's number 10, I think, which is really weird.
Yeah, he is 10. Yeah, that is strange.
So,
I don't like that.
I mean, you really can't.
I like Hertha Berlin, though. They're my Bundesliga team. Yeah, I don't know. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in curses or anything, but I think it's not a curse of the shirt. What it is it's a curse. That's a metaphor for the media pressure that comes with the number 9 shirt, I guess. And now people have started buying into it and saying, no, it's a real thing. And the players suffer from that. What if, for once, we decide to get behind the next guy that wears the number 9 shirt and say, this is going to be the guy that breaks the curse. And then he has the confidence to do so. But it never works that way. It's always like, he's going to be cursed. He's decided to pick that stupid number. The last proper good number 9 we had, I guess, was Inzaghi. It's kind of been cursed since then.
A while.
But yeah, I mean, there's been some rubbish that's worn it since. Luis Adriano probably being a favorite obscure player.
Oh, I'd say Mattia Destro, 70. Baca was 70.
He actually scored,
Baca was incredible. Destro...
Baca was 70, wasn't
he? Yeah.
When
Fernando Torres had it too.
Fernando Torres was here for, 6 months? That
was excellent. Have you seen the video?
That's the trend, dude. When you get the 9, you stay for 6 months, and then you get shipped off because you don't do good.
If you got a spare few minutes, watch the Fernando Torres AC Milan goals and assists or skills video on YouTube. It is hilarious.
You say a few minutes.
It's 4 minutes long. I think half of it is him running around the field doing nothing.
Well, he scored 1 goal. It was his first game with us. I was incredibly hyped. Fernando Torres is one of my favorite players of all time. He was just so good. Not at Chelsea, not at Milan, but so good at Liverpool and Atletico. And I think he actually got pretty good at Atletico again after we got rid of him. But God, and that was another deal, man. We switched him for Cherchi. Oof. And we all thought we pulled off a madness with that, but nope.
Cherchi was a weird one.
Yeah, he was no good.
Oh, God. Do you remember Mati Fernandez and Jose Sosa and players like that were brought in around that same time?
So random, yeah.
Anyway, Joseph Calvo asks, in the limited minutes that Matteo Gabbi has played, do you think he should get more of a chance in the first team next season? We talked about this when we talked about the defensive situation. More of a consistent opportunity, yes. But I still think we need to sign a more established partner for Romagnoli, because if we throw Gabbi in there and say you're going to start every league game for us, there'd be a bit too much pressure on his shoulders because he's 20. He's 20. And Upamecano is 21. I get it, but he's played Champions League games. He's played game in, game out for Leipzig. He's that much further ahead in his footballing career, his senior career at this point anyway, that he's a much more surefire bet. And as we've seen with injuries to Duarte, Musacchio, Chiesa, this season already, Gabbi will get his chance if he's, let's say, second, third in the pecking order. And if we play a 3-man back line under Rangnick, then who knows? He might actually force his way in there. But I think he deserves more minutes than he's had, yeah. That's about all I have to say there, really.
Yeah, me too. I'd say you covered it all. I don't disagree with any of
that. Okay. Sujin Aryal asks a 2-part question. So the first one is about the possibility of the new San Siro. Basically says bureaucracy in Italy makes everything like this 10 times harder. That is correct. Every single major development/investment project in a big city in Italy is always a political game. Always. Because the majority of old existing structures are owned by the councils, so they got all the revenue from it, and they have ownership over it. Same goes with San Siro. That's why the council are playing hardball over the new stadium. But it seems like we're getting there. And the big indicator came in the last week because Hines, who are that Texas-based real estate company, real estate fund, have bought an area around the stadium, which was pitched in the original project, saying that they're going to turn the old racetrack and they're going to turn the old training centre next to San Siro into offices, restaurants, shops, hotels and all that as part of the new San Siro complex. So that's a big, that's done, that's been bought. So that for me is a big indicator that we're getting there. They're clearly pretty confident that everything's going to get approved. So am I.
Yeah, I think that's the next step. I mean, we know that that's
I hope so.
been a holdup for a lot of future projects is the stadium. And if there's one group that's going to get it done, it's Elliott, regardless of the bureaucracy and all the bullshit we got to go through, the red tape. We know that that's just how it is with Italy. So it is what it is, but I think it'll get done.
I think there's a couple of types of firm that are going to come out of this global economic crisis pretty well. Elliott are one of them. There's a vulture capital fund. And real estate, I think, will as well. There's inevitably going to be probably on the lower end a housing market crash. But on the upper end, it's going to make very valuable plots of land a lot more affordable to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And that extends to Milan. And that's why I think they've managed to get the whole area that they wanted for 350 million, but they've managed to spread the payment over 3 years or something like that, I read. So they seem to have pulled off a bit of a blinder there. And that's the first step for me now. There's going to be some more meetings. Obviously, everything's been delayed with COVID. But frankly, Milan Council, with everything, are not in a position anymore where they can turn down a 1.2 billion euro investment in the city's infrastructure in the form of a new stadium. They'd be absolute fools to, because they've pulled the plug on. There was going to be, I want to say it was like Europe's second largest shopping centre was going to be built in Milan, and they've pulled the plug on that now, which means that San Siro is the biggest proposed investment in an Italian city anywhere that's currently out there.
Interesting.
So they'd be stupid to say, no, we're keeping San Siro. I don't know. I think it's times like this where we really need the investment. So I'm all for the new San Siro. I always have been. I hope that they do repurpose the old one, although it doesn't get knocked down. I hope they keep various artifacts from it, etc. But in terms of moving into the new age of football and moving into a new era, hopefully as a club, I think it's imperative. I think it's very important, and it's probably a semblance of the kind of ownership that we have, like you say, under Elliott. That's what's taken us to cut ties with sentimentality and say, no, we need a new stadium now. So yeah, interesting one. That's it. I think that's it.
We got one more question.
Oh yeah.
I promised I would get it on here. He's a loyal listener. He's asked this question a lot. We haven't asked it on the pod, so we're doing it now. It's from Michael at Voluti. He said, who was better than prime at Milan, Pato or El Shaarawy? Madison, you actually replied to this with a gif of a duck, so I think we already know your answer. But yeah, I'm going to piggyback off that, and I think Pato was better.
Yeah, Pato was. I think Pato started on a trajectory that was frightening. Like, he really was talked about as the next big thing. I think there was a combination of obviously injuries that did him in, scandals off the pitch, it would be fair to say, and then also he seemed to drift from being like he's an out and out centre forward to us being like, I don't know where we play this guy, and that was after the injuries as well, when he couldn't perform his role as well, and it was a difficult one. I think the difference with El Shaarawy was that he peaked in a really, really bad team. And he looked like, I suppose it's kind of a Bonaventure in a way, in that he was sort of there for a few years while we were rubbish, and he stood out because he was slightly above average. And then he went to Rome and he wasn't particularly brilliant. And obviously he's ended up in China now and wants to come back.
Bring him back. I'll take him.
And now
happily.
Pato's back in Brazil. It's interesting how it works. I mean, I wouldn't take either of them back. I'm sorry, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I think Pato's interesting because, you know, every club has that what if player, and Pato is one of ours. But Pato's also globally recognized as a what if player. You know, very few people, fans of football, look at Pato and just say, oh yeah, he was an average player. They always say like he could have been one of the greats if it wasn't for A, B, and C, you know. And very few clubs have a player like that every club just agrees it was filled potential.
I was so disappointed when he left because I wanted him to be good so bad.
Yeah.
So Pato, I had no idea that he's 30 now. I thought he was like in his mid to late 20s, because he was very young when he was with us. I didn't realize he played 150 games for us. I'd have put it around 100 mark, but 63 goals in 150 appearances, 18 assists. He's basically been a 1 goal every 2 game player wherever he's been.
Which isn't bad.
Pato, No, it's not. No, especially when he was like a creative forward, and the scoring impetus was always on other players when he was there.
I can't remember because he was at Chelsea for like half a season. Did he ever score there?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I think he only scored one, and it was a penalty. I think.
Okay, yeah.
But
I forgot he was
Pato,
at Chelsea.
That was a weird one. That was a really weird one. But Pato, I remember fondly because of the important goals that he scored. He scored that goal at the Nou Camp, which obviously went down in legend. He scored when we needed to beat Inter to basically get on the cusp of winning the Scudetto that season. And we beat him 3-0 and he scored within 30 seconds. It was, I hold him in high regard for that. And he's always spoken very highly of the club as well. In interviews, he's always said it was the best time of his career and he's never ruled out going back.
Because he was dating the owner's daughter.
He's even said it afterwards, though. Maybe he can do it now with no strings attached. I don't know. I don't know what Barbara's up to be honest. I don't think she's actually accepted my request on LinkedIn.
I have sent her one as well.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Yeah, well.
That's when you cancel it and send it again.
So, Barbara, if you're listening, then just give us an hand and we'll do an interview. We seem to have form for that kind of thing at the moment. So, that's it. No more questions. Any closing statements, lads?
It's a bit of a longer episode this time, so it's good to get back in the swing of everything. But yeah, that's it.
Hopefully that means games are coming up next.
Yeah, hopefully.
I think we should do we should genuinely pick a Bundesliga team. And then when it carries on, we can talk about for 5 minutes how our Bundesliga side's got on.
SempreMilan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, I guess. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We're getting there, we're slowly getting there. we somehow find stuff to talk about, which I find absolutely amazing. But, thanks to the papers for that one. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher or at Kilpin Chronicle for some more explicit Milan-based rants. Been joined by Anthony Torgrud.
Yep, good one. Torgrud45. Follow me on Twitter. Maddie.
Madison_DT. Give me a follow. I need it.
Excellent. Yes, you do. Thank you very much for listening, everybody, and watching, and we will catch you in a week's time.
Tira Alessio, Suso, tira, perché non tiriamo? Ma perché non tiriamo? Gol! Alessio Romagnoli, gol! Alessio Romagnoli!